A payment set of systems, because we do see banking system getting hugely disrupted also from the fintechs, and the partnership on the fintech on the payment industry on industries that the client get to touch and feel about is really up for disruption. There are many innovative areas and exciting ventures that are happening in that space, and also adding crypto and the Bitcoin space into this exercise makes the whole area pretty attractive. I think what I wanted to touch upon.
I turn to Tanvi. Tanvi has been a great leader in a lot of our IIF work around data topics, and around that point I made earlier about partnerships with other parts of the ecosystem. So now let's turn to Zurich, and Tanvi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. I think it's always good to be the speaker who tends to speak at the end and listen to the great insights that all of you just shared, especially the ones from Chris and Greg being practitioners and leaders in their own fields. I think it also, from my perspective, what you hear probably is a summary and repetition of what has already been said before, but I like to summarize innovation, digitization, digital transformation, and making organizations data-centric, insight-centric, making sure that people are going through user journeys are product-driven rather than very departmental driven. I think that's what we get to see more in the financial industries and big banks, that organization tends to operate in silos and very hierarchical in terms of the value that is delivered. What we do see in the digitization space is connect the dots. You're able to connect the dots much more effectively, which gives you the potential of reuse, which gives you the potential of leveraging the already existing capabilities from one department to another. And in the context of performing a lot of activities with cost pressure, speed pressure, and somebody mentioned quarter to quarter, making your quarter pressures, and at the same time bring in the transformation and making organizations scalable and attractive to our end customers, and not a payment set of systems, because we do see banking system getting hugely disrupted also from the fintechs, and the partnership on the fintech on the payment industry on industries that the client get to touch and feel about is really up for disruption. There are many innovative areas and exciting ventures that are happening in that space, and also adding crypto and the Bitcoin space into this exercise makes the whole area pretty attractive. I think what I wanted to touch upon is, somebody mentioned more context of where the innovation tends to stop, which is compliance, risk, regulations. And that is an area we found within our space that brought in innovation, that brought in a lot of digitization to the bank, because ultimately the data set, and my focus for today would be more around data, which tends to be also my specialty in the work I have been doing, remains to be the same data asset that can definitely help support the regulations and compliance in a big way, taking it away from a very lawyer-driven manual set of exercises, but also in a very data science set of approach. But how do you get into the context and bring in innovation, bring in efficiencies, bring in digitization, and create that sort of digital tribe in a very regulated, in a very traditional form of compliance and risk and legal areas, while usually the digital transformation in the banking and financial environment is thought through in the context of you engaging with a client and having a purpose for the client, or clients to be the front and center of the digital transformation exercise. In the context of work we did, we always understood and realized that big program, big bang approaches are the ones that are the most difficult to be very successful, very productive in the organizations. And when you really want to see a tangible benefit coming out of a digital transformation, that usually is a multi-year program. So the concept of agile, concept of bringing in valuable outputs in terms of the minimum viable product, we call it within our language, is really, really essential, because that gives you that gives the end users, the consumers, and by end users, I really mean anybody consuming the output of the product, whether it's the compliance officers, the risk officers, the investigators, the front office, the first line of defense, audit, or the regulators, see some tangible benefit coming out of it, which might not be perfect, but there is a journey out there. So and then also from an investor perspective, from investors meaning anybody who is providing the money or the contribution towards the creation of the end product. And if they continuously keep getting the tangible output or the tangible value that is visible to them, then that journey becomes really exciting. And in the context of the work we have done, and I've found it really, really successful, is the innovation at the edge. Because somebody used the terminology of antibodies, which is absolutely what you get to see in bigger organizations that have established themselves and have had been very, very successful in the past. And anything that is coming in new, which also is the innovation and digitization that comes in new, there is enough antibodies in the organization that tend to reflect it and then tend to reject the changes coming in. And in that context, if the innovation is not done at the center, but is done at the edge, and the edge slowly start becoming bigger and bigger and attack the core, then you have been able to create a big digital tribe and have been able to create journey leaders in that context that help support that digital transformation, then that exercise becomes hugely successful. And I'm speaking from experience because from a culture perspective, as Greg very nicely pointed out, that purpose and culture go hand in hand. If you do create a sense of purpose of what you're trying to achieve, then it's much easier for the microculture in the organization to change, ultimately reflecting on to the big culture. Now, the purpose we talk about within our shape is that our job within compliance and risk is to save the bank against bad actors. And that purpose has been a very big set of contributor towards attracting the talent that we always wanted to attract in the digital transformation space. Now, enough has been said about talent. The only pieces and bits that I like to add from our contribution on talent is that talent is created. We cannot, in today's world, think about, in majority of the cases, to bring in people who would be productive day one and would have an understanding of the domain. Because applied technology is what we do here. I really liked someone mentioning that as a fact, because even though you might bring in the best technologists and the best data scientists and the best cloud expert, they would not be successful unless they understand the context of what you're building, the domain and the SME knowledge. So we believe that just one individual would not be able to do it all. It would be a tribe, it would be a squad of individuals, some with the SME knowledge, some with the strong technical knowledge, some the squad leadership and the agile practice, and some just the cultural carriers of the organization together would be able to create a product which is useful. In terms of retention, that comes out to be really, really interesting, and co-op swaps and having people to do different set of activities. And also, this becomes really, really attractive. I mean, I also tend to lose a lot of talent within the teams, and it's for various different reasons. People stop finding purpose, people wanting to do something different, people feeling bored of a regular set of activities. Yeah, moving people back and forth between different projects, different areas definitely comes out to be, one of the successful ways of retaining them. But getting them to see an opportunity beyond what they currently get to do, and to be able to establish a career path which does not exist in the current banking system. It's a very financial banking set of organizations. So how do you create a career path for technology, for data within the organization, is also an activity that we as corporates need to very thoroughly think through in a similar lines that the technology firms have thought through. Because somebody who is an architect and who is a single contributor could be as valuable as someone who is managing a team of 40. And how do you give that similar set of respect and similar set of balance to individual is essential in retaining talent. And that does not come in easy when you gotta be responsible for not just the technical transformation, but also the people transformation and the HR practices within big organization. And finally, I'll leave the notion of what we within the digital transformation journey sometimes fail to do it as effectively as we can, is always the decision of buy versus build. Many a times we end up building infrastructures rather than building products which are very core to your own value, to your own organization. And in that context, if the decision of what is to be bought or to be partnered with other fintech, with other providers, other technology partners, and what is to be built, which is integral to the organizational setup, is determined appropriately, can really speed up the digital transformation journey. Happy to answer many questions. I'm sure there are quite a few, and just aware of the time, I want to bring it back to you, Brad.
Well, thanks, Tanvi, and indeed that's exactly where we'll go. In that, I think you and Greg have both touched on the point on talent, and I want to start with an audience question that picks up exactly that point. We've got a great question. Do you think that existing workforces can be retrained to have the right skills versus having to change out the workforces and fight other organisations for this ideal group of talent? Perhaps, Tanvi, if I can get a quick reaction from you